Who would have thought? Who would have thought? You wanted to see him, ladies and gentlemen. We are bringing it to you, and he's starting off with the best one drop in Modern. Tell me I'm wrong. And it's going to Dismember, not one of the only remove spells you can have in these Merfolk lists.
Is this video sped up or something? Because it looks like both players are like really. I like that. That's awesome.
Just looks like they're like playing fast. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Silver Guild Adept. That's the, good old honest magic.
It is fair. That's like proper fair magic. Your opponent's starting on a Ragavan and you're starting on just a nice little 2-mana 2/1. We're going to see it turning and burning here. Starts going through their deck. No threat for Mengucci to follow up. Does remember his bubble trigger though. He is a professional back on the Magic Pro Tour.
There is an Ether Vial in Goran's hand.
That'll help against the counter magic. See what option they want to go with. And this is like the strategy, right? What's the strategy of this Merfolk deck? What do they want to be doing?
So this deck has a lot of cheap creatures, but most importantly, it has a lot of lords. Cards like Lord of Atlantis, Merfolk of the Peril Trident.
Yep, correct.
That might be a different one. The Master of the Peril Trident is Lord, I think.
Yeah, Master of the Peril Trident.
Marrow Regenerate. There's a bunch of lords you can play. They pump all the other creatures. You have lands like Mutavault that also turn into a Merfolk. So you kind of like start the game sort of slow, an Ether Vial here, maybe like a Merfolk there. But at some point, you just vial a bunch of lords in, at end of turn 1, my turn 1, Marrow Regenerate, untap my land, play another lord. And you just kind of like smash the unassuming opponent with a bunch of really big creatures.
As we see the Merfolk Trickster come down here, it's going to tap that Murktide, so we can get some damage in if we need to. Merfolk's seeing a lot more play now. This the Hexcatcher Lord has been printed, giving everything +1/+1, and the ability to sacrifice a Merfolk to counter target non-creature spell unless they pay 1. And then on top of it, it has Flash itself. There's so much text on cards getting printed these days, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of magic right now. Like every card has 17 different abilities. Like just look at the Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Hexcatcher, okay.
We got a race. You know what I mean? We can't sit back forever. We are turning everything we can sideways. We see the Hexcatcher comes on the battlefield, pumping everything by 1. I think there's only 1 card over on Goran's side here. We'll see how Mengucci can deal with this. He's in the tank. He knows there's 3 creatures on the battlefield, plus the Mutavault, which obviously can be turned into a Merfolk. It does have all creature types. Yep, I agree with you, chat. Island Walk will probably come in quite handy in this matchup as well at times. So, blocking super hard for a lot of decks. They've kind of moved away from the spreading seas aspect, but we change it up with, the one draw Merfolk that can change.
Tide Shaper is that's the new way to not only turn the land into an island, but also it's another creature, so it kind of fits the whole theme.
I think that's why we've got a dice on that Steam Vent. I think it turned the Steam Vent into a land, trying to turn off that red mana from Mengucci. But he has a backup Steam Vent here.
Look at the Lightning Bolt, by the way, in the graveyard. We've been talking about what's the best art. I'm gonna go with Andrea, knowing the best modern art for the Lightning Bolt.
All I'm saying is we've seen more of these cards than we've seen the Secret Lair Hadouken cards, so mine must be rarer.
That's true. Fair.
Okay, 2 cards in hand for Merfolk. What do we want to do here?
So usually with Merfolk, you want to keep Vial on 2 because most of the creatures cost 2 mana, but there are some versions with cards like Master of Waves, for example, that might be in Goran's sideboard.
Obviously, we've got, I can never pronounce this name. Is it Saloon of Sea and Sky, the new Merfolk god?
The 3/4.
That helps a lot in this, gives everything, all your other Merfolks, Ward 1. Let's see if I can get that up on the screen for everybody, because this is a super powerful card. Give me a second there. And just like magic, there it is on the screen. So we see it has indestructible as long as you control 2 other Merfolks. Quite easy when you've got things like Mutavault and you're flooding the board with Merfolks. When it attacks, you get to draw a card, refill your hand, and other Merfolks you control have Ward 1. This card is great for this deck, right?
Yeah, I think one very important thing is it has 4 toughness. And in a format where everyone, plays 4 Lightning Bolts, there are cards like There are cards like Unholy Heat and like all these burn spells, Lava Dart. Having a 3/4 creature is pretty nice, especially if it draws you more cards.
And just like that, Merfolk manages to take down game 1. I feel like, as we spoke about that, the blocking aspect, it being able to go wide and being a closed deck list tournament, Mengucci might not have known that he was against Merfolk and maybe kept a bit of a slower hand. But then we did see Unholy Heats and Lightning Bolts. Just wasn't enough to get there.
Yeah, and Andrade's going to be looking for, more cheap removal, like that Fury looks good. Engineered explosives, onto that doesn't destroy anything in Andrea's deck other than Ledger Shredder, so it's pretty easy to kind of play around that and, get the opponent pretty well with explosives onto maybe on turn 4, then just blow it up right away.
Where are we on the counter spell sort of stuff? Obviously, there's a lot of Cavern of Souls over on the other side, Aether Vials. Do you like keeping these in, or do you think we're going to start trimming these counter spells?
Yeah, that's interesting. A good thing is that you have Ledger Shredder in your deck, so even if your opponent does have the Cavern of Souls, it's still not going to be like a completely dead card, right? Like, at least you can still discard it to Ledger Shredder, so it's not going to be completely useless. So I think having some counter spells is still probably fine, but if you have better cards in the sideboard, if my sideboard has 4 Fury and 3 Explosives, and I'm looking at my deck, I can't find anything else that I want to board out, then yeah, Counterspell is a perfectly reasonable card to take out because of those Caverns of Souls.
Okay, over on the Merfolk side, we've got a couple of cards here. We've got a lot of Graveyard Hate. We've got some Chalices, but let's talk about the Kira Great Glass Spinner in these sort of decks.
Yeah, I personally, it doesn't have creature type Merfolk, which I think is a big deal because you have so many lords that you really want your creatures to be Merfolk so that they get the bonus power and bonus toughness. But yeah, Kira can definitely be amazing against decks with Lightning Bolts and Unholy Heats and everything. So that's probably gonna come in this matchup. Harbinger of the Tides looks pretty reasonable because deck can lock down. Wait, no, that's not the one that taps a red or green creature. That's the one that returns a tapped creature. So that's probably for some like.
Oh, it'd be pretty good against a big Merfolk, a big Murktide, right?
There's a Merfolk that if you play it,
it locks down a green or red
creature. Yeah. It taps it for like a long time.
Prominent when Mono Blue Devotion was a tier 1 deck in Standard back in the Born of the Gods days. Yep. Love that format. Love that. Everything about it.
Chalice of the Void is also a very reasonable card for Goran to bring in because the only 1-drops you're playing yourself are 4 Aether Vials, which presumably you're going to play turn 1. You also have Tide Shaper, but you can sneak that into play through the Vial. So Chalice of the Void sounds pretty good against a deck that has 20-ish 1-mana cards, so that sounds reasonable.
Okay, we are off to the races over on Mengucci's side. No turn 1 play, and we do have a turn 1 Aether Vial over for our Merfolk player. Here comes the turn 2 Ledger Shredder. This is going to let us turn and burn for our deck if it lives. And it is not going to live. It is going to eat a Dismember.
The Vial is extremely important for the Merfolk player because over the course of the game, it produces kind of like, 10 mana-ish kind of value, which is great not only because of that, but because your opponent can't even really interact with it. They're not going to be able to counter the creatures. If you tap the Vial, they have to respond.
How about
the creature gets into play.
This double Dismember going down to 12 life and then following up with the Chalice that you said that would be pretty good in this matchup. It's kind of, as we said, turn 1 Vial, turn 2, or well, turn 3 Chalice in this one, and we're going to follow up with a Lord of Atlantis. Unfortunately, that was an Aether Vial off the top.
Bringing in Chalices, maybe the card to board out is also Tide Shaper because you don't want to have that many 1-drops.
Oh my words. We're going to, obviously, there's no threat of Unholy Heats, no threat of Lightning Bolts here. We're not scared of it because Chalice is on 1.
Yeah, look at the Mutavault. The fact that you have 4 extra Merfolks in your mana base and now it gets to attack for 4, that's insane.
Yeah, and on the flip side, if Mengucci hasn't brought in something like a braid or ways to get this off the battlefield, he's running out of time that maybe he can cash in a Fury or something if he has it.
I think Andrea has a Fury, but both of those Merfolks are 3/3s, so you can't really do 2/2 and kill both. You only get to kill 1, which is kind of awkward because, tapping 5 mana just to deal with 1 creature is not exactly how you would like to solve this board, but...
And they both give Island Walk, right? So, yep, and... Yep, both give Island Walk as well. So, again, this Fury's not going to even be doing too good on blocking duty, but it is a 3/3 double striker, and we are only at 12 life on the other side. We're going to fire up this Mutavault. We're going to come across. That is another 3 points of damage, dropping Mengucci down to 8.
Yeah, Lord of Atlantis only grants the other Merfolks Island Volk, but I think the other...
And that's why we didn't see an attack there with it.
Yeah, Andrea is flooding out a little bit, and this is a
Iteration.
perfect example of how important the Ledger Shredders are in this deck, because if you draw in, some extra lands, you can ditch them to the Shredder and get some new cards. In this case, both Shredders died to the Dismembers, and Andrea is just stuck with a bunch of extra lands.
He did manage to get himself an EE Engineered Explosives off that iteration. Obviously, one of the most powerful cards you could be casting for 1 blue and 1 red. He's going to put it into exile, but I imagine he's going to cast it. Is it going to be for 0? Are we going to try and get that Chalice off the board and unlock our spell, so to speak? Here comes a Trickster end of turn. Tap down that Fury. Mengucci at 8, and I count 8 on the battlefield.
That's a Kira. Oh, it's top. Yeah, and we did learn in the previous matches that if you blow up explosives for 0, it does deal with Chalice.
Maybe our life totals are wrong? Okay, maybe not now. Now it's yeah, that's
Wow,
game. That is quick. Maybe we found the deck that slays Merfolk. That was super quick, super explosive. Chalice on 1 kind of shut that whole game down for game 2. Oof, okay.
So both decks kind of did what they're supposed to do, but I think the 2 Dismembers were key.
Oh
in
yeah,
turning the game, in Goran's favor, because both players had a good draw. Goran had an exceptional draw. Turn 1 Vial kind of